Joining me now here in New York to slice and dice the statement from the defendant, Jason Friedman is a former prosecutor. Jason, great to see you.
Thank you.
And Adam Perlmutter is a criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. Adam, nice to see you again as well.
Good morning, Lisa. Good morning.
All right, good morning. Let me begin with you. You gotta hate it when a client comes to your office, sits down, and you're gonna defend him in a murder case, and he says, oh, by the way, I just need to tell you, I gave a lengthy, detailed, written statement to investigators before I crossed your threshold.
You know, Lisa, it's funny because on my business card on the back of it, it has a warning for police not to question my client. And unfortunately,
Really?
Usually, I have to give the client the card after he's made a statement. So you're right. It's usually it's never a good thing. It's never ever a good thing to speak to the police.
But here's the problem, Adam. If somebody is not a suspect, I mean, this is the last guy seen with Shelton Sanders, and the police, of course, are going to want to talk to everybody who saw him on his last day before he disappeared, including the guy who was last with him. And if he clams up and says, oh, I'm not going to speak, I'm going to go through my attorney, call my attorney, it certainly makes him look a lot more suspicious, doesn't it?
It does, you know, but the fact is that usually that's the best thing to do. It's obviously a missing persons issue. It's obviously of concern. The police want to speak to you. I think that the natural inclination is to want to speak with the police and be helpful.
Yeah.
But, you know, usually the best thing to do is to turn to a family attorney or turn to some attorney and have that person screen the contact with the police. That's just a fact of life. And, you know, the fact is, Lisa, whenever the police say that they've taken a statement from an individual, it's always of concern if it hasn't been recorded on a video device or on a tape recorder.
Yes.
And that's really kind of the heart of this case here. There are many statements that they're attributing to Mr. Richardson, and the fact is that the police, the technology is readily available to record this stuff, and we're given it through a filter of a supposed police credibility. And it creates problems.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Jason Friedman, why on earth would the police not use a $10 or $15 tape recorder and get everything recorded so that later on their credibility isn't called into question? Didn't you put words into his mouth? You wrote the statement. He didn't really read it. He just signed it. Why have those issues? Why not just tape record everything?
I think it's a big mistake on the police department's efforts there. They most definitely should have recorded it just for that reason, to establish their credibility. Now, in the absence of the recording, their credibility is subject to attack by the other side. Just going back to giving a statement in general to the police, don't forget the police are very good at what they do. And they're very persuasive, and they try to be your friend. Listen, you're not involved in this case, come on and talk to us, just give us your story, we'll straighten this whole thing out. Of course, then you give the statement, and it turns out they're going to use that against you in a prosecution.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, Adam, one of my favorite parts of the statement is prosecutors were able to bring Mark Richardson to trial, even though Shelton Sanders' body was never found. But there have also been cases in which a body was found, and yet no arrest was ever made. For example, on August 5th, 1994, Susan Harrison vanished. She disappeared after visiting her estranged husband, James Harrison, a wealthy Baltimore businessman. Well, more than 2 years later, hikers found Susan Harrison's body in a wooded area of Frederick County, Maryland. Police ruled her death a homicide. Harrison had complained to police for years that her husband was abusive, but Jim Harrison was never charged with her murder. In fact, the case remains unsolved to this day. And then there's the mysterious disappearance of Washington intern Chandra Levy. Remember her? She was last seen on April 30th, 2001, and her body was found in Rock Creek Park in 2002. Initially, attention turned to California Representative Gary Condit. Levy's family and police allege that Condit had an extramarital affair with the 24-year-old intern, but Condit denied the affair and was never officially called a suspect in Levy's death. Her murder remains unsolved. So, Jason Friedman, you know, it's curious to me that in this case, I'm sure that law enforcement has been looking long and hard for the body of Shelton Sanders, but even if they found it, it wouldn't necessarily make the case any stronger.
Oh, well, very well might, because presumably there's going to be forensic evidence on the body.
Maybe, but after 7 years, there might not be much.
Well, there might be something, though, and it can definitely help. And obviously for a jury to wrap their mind around sending somebody away for a murder, obviously it's going to help them if the body was actually found, so they can squarely say this person's deceased, a murder was committed.
Yeah, true enough. And Adam Perlmutter, I'm sure on the defense side, you're going to be making the most of the fact that the body was never found. Would Wouldn't you argue, though, that perhaps Shelton Saunders is still alive after 7 years and not a word from him?
Well, you know, people disappear all the time. I mean, it's not, they don't have a body. And they just can't prove that this guy is dead.
Wait, what do you mean people disappear all the time? Do they really? I mean, in this day and age, this is a guy who was making cell phone calls to his parents almost daily. He was very connected, very tuned in. He was going to be the best man in his friend's wedding. Do you think he would just voluntarily disappear off the face of the earth?
We have no idea really what was going on with him. And the fact is that there are times when people want to start a new life and they do disappear. And they do it effectively. The fact is that there's no body here, and as long as there's no body, there's going to be a difficulty in trying to link this case up to Richardson. There's really nothing that the police have. There's nothing that they can put their finger on in particular to tie him to this murder, and the absence of the body is very, very difficult. Lisa, let me tell you something. I stole this from my wife this morning. It's a $99 video camera. Okay.
Don't point that thing at me.
These things are completely available, and the police can. There's no reason why they can't be recording these interviews of suspects like Richardson.
Yeah.
The fact is, they do it in Minnesota. The police unions have been fighting all across the country to not have videotaped interviews. The FBI, they never taped interviews, and in fact, they destroy a lot of notes from original interviews and just type them up and say that that's what happened. If law enforcement really wanted to be serious about prosecuting people and making juries believe that what they do is truthful and honest, they would record these things. And until they do it, it's going to be a problem. As a defense lawyer, I hope they never do it, because it gives us the opportunity to fight cases like this. But they just, you know, the technology's there.
Now, that's a pretty cool little camera your wife's got, and it's nice that she let you borrow it for the purposes of the show.
She fought me like, she didn't want me to leave the house with it.
No, that's a spiffy little camera. All right, so Jason Friedman, from the prosecution side, what do you think happened to the body of Shelton Saunders? You know, it's not so easy to get rid of a body, to completely dispose of it in the middle of the night. If you dump it in a body of water, oftentimes it floats up later on. I mean, that happened in the Scott Peterson case. And this is in the middle of a populated area. What do you think happened to it?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I was just discussing that with Adam off camera, because you would think that by disposing of the body, there's going to be some residual evidence, be it in a car. If he took the body out into the woods or the backyard, there'd be some evidence that you know, grass was trampled and whatnot. And I think the prosecutor has a very difficult time in this case explaining exactly that. What happened to the body? They want the jury to send this person away for a very long time for murder, and without the body, they're going to have to come up with a good explanation as to exactly what happened.
Yeah, and you know, Jason, the police did do a search of the defendant's home, of the defendant's car, of the victim's car, admittedly 2 years later when it was found, and there just wasn't any forensic evidence linking the defendant to this crime. You know, sometimes we say it's very difficult for the defense to prove an absence of evidence, but here there really is an absence of hard forensic evidence, the kind of stuff the jury likes to get their hands around.
No question about it. And as a prosecutor, and I'm sure this prosecutor is agonizing over this fact, because he knows that you know, the jury needs to wrap their mind around sending somebody away. And without that body, and without a rational and reasonable explanation about what he could have done with the body, it's just a very, very difficult obstacle to overcome.
So we got some suspicious statements from the defendant. And former prosecutor Jason Friedman is still with us. Jason, prosecutors don't have to prove motive, but you sure would like to have something if you're bringing a murder case and there's no body and there's no weapon. What if you don't have a motive either?
Then you're really in trouble. And if I'm the prosecutor, I'm very worried right now. This witness looks very uncomfortable on the witness stand. He doesn't seem like he's speaking with any kind of authority or conviction. I'm starting to wonder whether or not he believes the defendant in this case actually did it.
Well, you know, Jason, we did hear yesterday, we saw on the program yesterday some of the friends of the defendant, and I thought they gave some pretty compelling evidence. It may be not directly relevant, but it came in because the defense had opened the door, and the testimony was that Mark Richardson had become paranoid and even violent and pulled guns on his friends in the year before the disappearance of Shelton Saunders. That before that, he was a good guy, friendly guy, everybody liked him, but something switched in him and he really became paranoid. Would that concern you?
I definitely would, and I think what the prosecutor is going to try to do is use that as the motive. Going back to your original point, motive, although it's not a technical element in proving a criminal case, we all know that if a jury is not satisfied that there's a legitimate, realistic motive for committing a crime, they're really going to have a hard time convicting somebody of a crime, especially a murder. So I think what the prosecutor is going to try to illustrate here is that there wasn't necessarily a direct motive other than maybe he's having some mental health issues, the paranoia, the prior episodes of violence to address the why of the case.
It is hard to see, though, Adam.